There's nobody now but yours.
So good morning and welcome to the Saturday conversation. And today we're having it with somebody who quite a lot of you, I hope, will recognise. Somebody who spent a lot of his ministry here in the Diocese of Winchester as the Archdeacon of Bournemouth. And so it's really good to say hello again to Peter Rauch. Hello, Peter.
It's great to see you, Mark. And people who are listening in, it's lovely that you can join us.
So Peter has moved to a new challenge, and I thought it might be interesting for him to tell us about the challenge in his own way, and also a bit more about the organisation, because it's an organisation I think we all know exists, but I'm not entirely certain that we all know exactly what it does in its modern form. So while we were talking to each other and emailing, I noticed there was a strapline on Peter's email that said, "Never more needed." So, Peter, my first question to you is, what is the essence of the church army? And in 2021, why is it never more needed?
Well, Mark, the vision of Church Army, and it's something that we live and breathe and die by, is that absolutely everybody, wherever they are, should have the possibility of a life-transforming encounter with Christ and then be empowered to transform their communities. So that's, I suppose, our embrace it all, what we're about. Why is it never more needed? Well, in a couple of ways. In terms of the pattern of life in our society, I think we have seen inequality growing, fragmentation growing, marginalisation growing, and significant economic challenges. Now, we will see some bounce in that, but actually with big issues like environmental change to cope with, the economics of life in England are going to remain very challenging, and those issues for those who are on the edge, those who are marginalised, are going to become extreme. That's where Church Army focuses itself, those who are marginalised, those who are excluded. It's where we've always worked, always prioritised. So never more needed as an organisation of service and mission. From that perspective, I think the other part of that vision is that people have a life transforming encounter, not just that societies live better together. And we know that the missional task in front of the church is as big as it has ever been, and is getting starker in some ways, but it's also a point of real creativity. The last 18 months, and the very fact that we're having this conversation, Mark, in this format, this medium, and that we all know what to do with it, is an example of things starting to change. So there is the opportunity for creative and agile organisations like Church Army to do things that folk have not done before. And we're pioneers at our heart. We do things that people haven't done or maybe don't dare to do.
Great. So maybe you can just give us an idea of what it like. There probably isn't a typical Church Army project, but I mean, how do you achieve some of those things?
Okay. Well, you could divide the life and work of Church Army into, I suppose, parcels, segments. The ones that people are most likely in church life to have come across are what we call our centres of mission. So we are invited into partnership, usually with the diocese, maybe with a province of the Anglican Church, and that can be anywhere within the UK or Ireland. We work right the way across Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England. So we're invited into partnership, and it's usually because a diocese or a province is looking at an area and saying, actually, the game is up there. We don't know what to do. The church has gone. This is a really hard to reach neighbourhood. What do we do? And so we will send a pioneer evangelist and a lead evangelist as a team, and they are the nucleus of what we call a centre of mission. And so they will engage in building community, in serving community, but building community, and that's Christian community, but also the wider fabric of community life. So they'll gather around them volunteers, they'll gather around the people who want to be involved in these things and create a centre of mission. We're doing that in over 30 places across the islands of the British Isles, and it's growing rapidly. We've got another 6 centres of mission that we're being asked to launch at the moment, and we're working on them. We will launch every single one of them. Our estimate is we'll probably be up to 50 centres of mission within 2.5, maybe 3 years of now. So that's a massive growth. We're being, our support in that is being pursued rapidly. I was over in Wales earlier this week touring our centres of mission there. 2 of them brand new, just starting out, very, very exciting proposals. So that's the centres of mission, and there is one in Southampton. So there is one quite close to you. The other side, which maybe you won't have heard about, but it's massive in terms of what we do as Church Army, is what we call our key projects. So these will be things that we've set up to address a particular need, which may go beyond a single local community. The biggest of those is what we call the Marylebone Project, and we've been doing that for years. The Marylebone Project started out simply as a homelessness project in Westminster in London. It is now the largest women's refuge in Europe, and it runs the only 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week drop-in centre for homeless women in Europe, as far as we know. It's a huge undertaking, but as well as homelessness stuff, it provides life skills work, education, skills training. It deals with addiction, issues of abuse, trafficking, everything that goes around this problem of homelessness for people. And we just see transformation time after time in people's lives. We had a new service user trustee came onto the board of Marylebone for the meeting I chaired about a month ago. And I asked people to share their lockdown song, just as we're getting to know each other. And she said she was Eritrean by background. She was a refugee from the war in Ethiopia. And she said, I haven't got a lockdown song, but can I sing to you? This is all on Zoom. And I said, yeah, sing to us. And she sang us a song in Amharic. And she said, this is a song of praise to God for everything he's done in my life since I was found by Marylebone. It's just fantastic stuff. She's now in work. She's got her own place. Life is back together. She's progressing well. And you see that time and time again. So Marylebone is one. We work in homelessness with teenagers, a place called Tibrona in Cardiff. I was there earlier this week. Is essentially the leader in terms of sustainable provision for homeless teenagers. The social workers want their young people to be in Tibrona. Young people, if they're going anywhere, they want to be in Tibrona. It's a flagship project. They're doing really good work. Amber, also in Cardiff, is working with teenagers who are self-harming and wrestling with their mental health. And another award-winning project, Constellation, that works with teenagers who are in that questioning area, which is becoming really quite common for people around their sexual identity. They're a companion to young people as they take that journey through understanding who they are. Chocolate Box is a work with women who are caught in the sex industry, very often through trafficking, very often through addiction. And we're providing essentially refuge space, a place where you can get a bath, change your clothes, get medical help, and just find someone who wants to have a conversation with you just for you. They're extraordinary. So those are our key projects, Centres of Mission key projects. The research unit. Some of you might have seen some of the outputs of that. Research on Messy Church came out recently about discipleship through Messy Church. We've done some focused work on fresh expressions of church. We've just launched a consultation, which if you Google it, you'll find it, which is about our experiences of online church through the pandemic. What can we learn through this? Church Army is doing that work as an offering to the wider church. So it's quite a big research unit full of professional researchers that focus essentially on contemporary mission in the church. Resources, mission resources, faith pictures, faith empowered, faith explored are there, which are free to use for churches and for individuals. And we also have online learning communities for those who want to learn what it is to live missionally in a way that impacts the world. That's Envoy, Reunion and Explore. Those resources, they're online. There are a number of other things we do. We can be a shelter for organisations who've not got anyone else to hold their hand as they grow. So we are at the moment the shelter for a national network of chaplains who work with people who are kind of adrift on the waterways of England and people in desperate circumstances with nowhere to go. A retreat centre over in Suffolk, we provide shelter for that as well, and that's focused at young people. Gold Digger Trust is now a flourishing charity. We provide that. Look, if anyone can, Church Army can function. So that's those, I suppose, are the big bolts of what we do as Church Army.
Oh, so not a great deal then, really.
It's a big organisation, I suppose. In terms of turnover, it's the size of it's a large diocese, but it's spread right the way across the British Isles. Yeah. And I also have this odd role because it comes out of Anglican Church. You know, there's a bit in America and there's a bit in Canada, and oddly, there's a very large Church Army in Denmark. There's a large one in Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and I have this kind of slightly no authority but plenty of profile role, like the Archbishop of Canterbury has in the Anglican Communion. So I can't actually do anything, but I'm responsible for it all in some way. So that's quite fun.
Nothing new there then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating, because there were bits that I did know, but I certainly didn't know about the research stuff and all that. So yeah, there's lots that we can all sort of dip into and learn from that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Right. I was going to turn to something a bit more personal next and say, look, you know, you were an archdeacon in a diocese, which is a very particular post, which you did here for quite a number of years and helped many of us hugely. But you know, what attracted you to go to Church Army? How did you feel called to it as an organisation?
And I suppose there are two sides to that answer. How practically did it happen, but why did I feel called?
Yeah.
And I suppose people have their own recollections and perceptions of me as an archdeacon. But I suspect amongst those, for many people, would be a sense of that I get excited about a positive impact in the lives of communities and individuals. That actually, that's something that lights my fire and gets me going. And secondly, actually, I'm quite serious about people. I hope as an archdeacon, I was very serious about the communities that I serve, about their life, the reality of their life, not some dream world that they should be, but what actually they were, and loving churches and communities as they were. And these are just pivotal to what Church Army is. You know, it's a mission and evangelistic organisation, but it's completely wedded to the idea that what you speak, you live, and what you live, you speak. With integrity and with reality. So that desire to live the Christian life in that way is hugely attractive, as was the focus on those who are marginalised and excluded. Before I became Archdeacon of Bournemouth, I was a vicar in some really tough parishes in the sort of tough end of Manchester. And whilst at times it was uncomfortable, I think I was privileged to share life with people that my previous background would have never enabled me to do so, and to learn hugely from them. So that priority towards the poor and the marginalised has remained part of who I am. Church Army is a place where that gets lived out every day. So probably those things, I would say. Plus, I thought I'd like to be a chief exec. I thought that'd be fun.
Well, it might be some other time. So I know you've only been there in post for a few weeks really, but in that time, what struck you about the organisation?
Well, the first time we've got a centre in Sheffield called the Wilson Carlisle Centre, which it's a sort of 80s built. It's really nice, great training facility, offices, whole range of stuff there. The first time I went to the Wilson Carlisle Centre, I walked through the door. And bear in mind, I'd not met anybody apart from the 2 or 3 people I'd been interviewing with. And I walked through the door, and there's one of the guys who does the door, a guy called Chris, ex-military. Quite a few challenges in his background himself. And I walked through the door, and Chris looked up from the desk and he says, "Oh, hello, Peter." And I'd never met this guy before. I said, "Oh, you know who I am?" He said, "Of course I know who you are." He says, "Let me tell you, this is the best place I've ever been." This is straight off as I walked. This is the best place I've ever been. He says, "There's nowhere like this." So I'll tell you what, if you ever want me to do anything, I don't care what day of the week it is. I don't care what time of day or night it is. You've got my mobile number. You call me, I'll do it. This is the best place I've ever been. That's just striking. And I've seen, okay, that was quite extreme from Chris, but I've seen that attitude of commitment to what Church Army is, what Church Army does, time and time again in the people who work with us. There's a huge passion for the organisation and what it does. No, we don't employ all Christians and all faith people. We have people from all kinds of backgrounds, but we all gather around what it is that we're achieving together in some very tough circumstances. So that side of it is just wonderful to be part of. So some lovely people, and I think I've been really struck by the stories of transformation. I was talking about the young woman who's now on the board of the Marylebone Project. I could talk to you about the young person I encountered in Tipperona earlier this week. Been heavily involved in county lines, life going way out of whack. He's progressing now towards college, following in the steps of one of the young people who's been through before, a guy called Abdi, who's now at university. So these lives which were, within an inch of being lost, some of them quite literally in terms of the self-harm stuff, actually redeemed and saved. It's just stunning stuff, and it's great to be part of it.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. I can quite see why you'd be attracted to something like that. I guess there are people listening to that thinking, actually, this is amazing. What could we do in some way to help? So here we are in Fordingbridge, in a relatively affluent society where we don't see a lot of the issues that you're talking about here. We're not without some of them. We know we have the drug abuse stuff and all that sort of thing, but it's not to the extent that you're talking about. What could we do as a church or individuals to support what the Church Army does?
Well, you'll be expecting to say you can pray for us and you can give to us, and I will say that because that's important. But I think what I'd say first is use some of the resources, get to know us. So I mentioned just earlier Envoy and Explore and Reunion. So these are places, and also Faith Pictures, Faith Explored, Faith Empowered, our faith resources. They're all available. They're completely free. They're on the website. They're a way of learning a little bit about how we live life missionally. You can become part of a learning community about living missionally. You can dip into those resources and think, what impact would these make locally? So, start to take the journey with us into missional living, and you will get to know us. You don't have to wear a uniform. We don't actually have uniforms these days, but you don't have to be anyone in particular to be part of Church Army. You can just join. You can just let your life flow with ours, and we'll be very happy to have you. So that's the first thing I say. Look, just take a dip, get to know us. But then, yes, of course, we publish a weekly prayer diary, so people can know what it is we're working on, and can support us in prayer. And it makes a massive difference to us when people support us financially. Some parishes do, and some individuals do as well. And that, people will give with a sort of regular gift. They also do some lovely creative things like at birthdays. So people will just, rather than have birthday presents, they'll say, look, can you give money to Church Army? And it'd be great if it was used for this. So the birthday stuff is great. So those would be the obvious ways. But so sometimes there are charities that do really good work. I give to ActionAid, which I think is a fantastic charity. And I get the updates, and it's great, and I'm very happy to give on that basis, but I can't really be involved in how ActionAid does its stuff. The thing with Church Army is you can actually be involved without sort of moving house and sinking heart and soul on it. You can touch and taste and see with this. So I'd encourage people to do that, and then have a think, okay, can I support a bit further?
Okay, well, that's a conversation that we can have here probably, and see what people think. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's so much good work that's being done, and it is literally saving people. So that's something that we should try and connect with, I think. I want to ask you one now, and I'm going to ask you this because I sent you the question, but I have this real issue with like fighting talk words that link to Christian organisations. So whilst, I often tell the tale to people when I'm preaching of the fact that I used to drag my parents down onto Brighton seafront when I was 4 years old to go and listen to the Salvation Army band and watch them with all their tambourines and all the ribbons that were on them. But the word army, I struggle with a bit in that, and church army has continued with army. And I just wonder whether, like, is that the right sort of word to have in your title? Or is it, or I don't know. I just struggle with it. I just wondered what you thought.
Well, you wouldn't be alone in that, and even within church army, you wouldn't be alone in asking that question. It's a perennial question for us, and the name essentially comes from a different era, doesn't it? I think Salvation Army was mid 1860s. Church Army was mid 1880s. So there's a cultural pool, but the cultural pool has changed. And you're right. I think for most people, Church Army has some resonances that actually don't reflect what we are as an organisation. But once people know us, actually they cease to worry about it. So we've got a very solid core of supporters who love Church Army and pray for us and pray for us and pray for us, for whom that's a significant thing. I think, maybe over time that will change. I don't know. But if it's going to change, probably the worst way to do it is to say, well, actually, we're not using that anymore. We're going to be called this, because you can end up trashing things that are really good and beautiful. And those who support us are both good and beautiful. And the last thing I'd want to do would be to tread all over that in any way. But I think it will continue to be a conversation within Church Army. And it may be that people are very happy to engage with, say, Marylebone or Amber or Constellation or Waterways or many of the other things we do. And it's not that significant to them actually that the umbrella is called Church Army, because actually this is where they're engaging. It's an open question, Mark. And I think we did a Q&A amongst staff, what are the most common things you get asked? And probably about 80% of the questions were about, what's this army thing? Particularly in the younger age group. So we're conscious of it. But there's something beautiful about it, as well as the need to develop potentially.
Good. Okay. Well, that gives me something to chew over, doesn't it? Thank you. So I've got one more for you, and again, it's a personal one. So as you certainly have told me, and I can't remember whether you've told us all in this few minutes or not, you've had to up sticks from Chandlersford and go to Sheffield, and just that in itself, is a big thing, isn't it? Your life changes, not just for you, it changes for the family and whatever. And I just wondered whether, how good has been God in that process to you?
Well, I mean, it has been. It's been at times challenging, but also at times joyful. So at the moment, I'm talking to you from the study in the Archdeacon's house in Chandlersford. So to that extent, I haven't moved. I'm commuting on a weekly basis at the moment. I've got a bed sit in Sheffield with a bunch of young professionals, and I'm the granddad who's in there. But I'm the one with a bottle of Jack Daniels. So can have some fun. But we are looking for a house. We do need to physically move. And Tracy needs to find another job in Sheffield. And to be honest, it's been a little bit of a nightmare, really, because this move has coincided with one of the maddest property markets we've seen since the 1980s, really. And simply in the month of May this year, property prices in Sheffield rose by 10%. Just in a month, they went up by 10%. And I'm only there Tuesday to Thursday. I couldn't even get in to see a house, let alone make an offer and have it accepted. And the offers are going in tens of £1,000s above the asking price. So it's, I got to the point where I thought, I've just got to give up. This is not going to work. We'll have to find someone to rent, or I have to commute for longer, or this kind of thing. But a viewing came up. I'd not been able to get in, and a viewing came up. It was actually on a house that I'd seen when I first arrived in Sheffield. Thought, oh, that would be good, but we'll think about that later. And it went off the market. And since then, I've been kicking myself. I didn't just say, we'll take it. But it came back on the market. And I went round and I knocked on the door. And the lady opened the door, and I had my church, I've not got one here, but Church Army lanyard, sort of big orange lanyard. She said, oh, Church Army. I said, oh, do you know Church Army? She says, yeah, we're church people. We know all kinds of folk who've been in and out of Church Army over the years. Transpires that they just feel that we're the people they need to sell their house to. But we couldn't afford the asking price. So I offered £10,000 below it. I actually thought it wasn't worth bothering, bearing in mind how things were working. And Tracy just said to me, like, you just do it and trust. If it's the right place, it'll work somehow. I don't know how, but if it's right, it'll work. So I offered 10,000 below the asking price. And the estate agent, he rang me, he said, do you know these people? And I said, no. He says, in all my years as an estate agent, I've never seen anything like this. He says, do you know people have offered them £20,000 above their asking price? They want to sell it to you. They think this is the thing they need to do. It's just extraordinary. And then the week after that, Tracy got offered a job, and the premises of the organisation are straight opposite the front door of this house. It's just, my wife says trust, and she kind of knows what she's talking about. Maybe they should have appointed her, not me.
I bet the estate agent hopes that doesn't happen too many times.
Yeah.
He's going to lose out every time, isn't he? So, that's incredible. That's incredible. Listen, Peter, it's been amazing to talk to you about this, and it would be great to do it again, maybe in a year's time, and see what's happened in the interim. But we absolutely all wish you just so much. I was going to say luck, but that's not the right word. We just wish that everything you want to happen there will happen. And I know you're dealing with some stuff that you don't know what the answers are yet, but I'm sure prayed over and thought over, you'll come up with some answers. And yeah, we'll have a chat about perhaps what we might be able to do to get involved a little bit, or at least to understand more about what the organisation does. It's probably time to sign off now. So thank you so much for spending the time today, because I know you're busy. It's been great to catch up for me personally with you again, because you were part of my church life certainly for a long time, and spent a lot of time in meetings together at various times, and it's just great to catch up again. So thank you for that. For everybody else, you'll find us here again at 10 o'clock tomorrow for an online service, and then of course throughout the week for the thoughts for the day. And also obviously a reminder that tomorrow we've got Tom's ordination at 3:30 in Fordingbridge, so I hope to see you there too. Thank you, Peter, and
thank you.
Goodbye to everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.
Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he sees, yours are the feet with which he walks, yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the hands with